Welcome to Talk to Me Baby, the show that believes knowing yourself and living in accordance with who you are is the biggest asset you can possess in life. I'm your host, Emily de Armas, and today we are going to talk about what to do when everything sucks. Yay! Maybe I shouldn't be saying yay, but this is going to be a great episode if you are in the throes of a situation that you don't want to be dealing with. Something is going on in your life that you're just not okay with, or you just feel overwhelmed by these circumstances and you don't know what to do about them. First, I will tell you what is on my lips. I am wearing the new Merit Soft Matte Lipstick. This is in the color Sunday, which is appropriate because I am filming on a Sunday. And this is a really nice, wearable pink color. Highly recommend. And I'm wearing it with a CoverGirl clear lip balm on the top. All of this info will be in the description box if you choose to peruse. So let's get into small talk. Sometimes in life, as we've all experienced, we go through periods where everything sucks. It might just be in one area of your life. It might be in multiple areas of your life. Bless you. But we've all faced this kind of a situation before where we're just not happy about something and it kind of takes over for us on an emotional level, maybe even on a mental level, where that's all that we can focus on is the fact that this situation is happening and we don't like it and it sucks. And that's all you can kind of feel for a little bit. So we're going to talk about what to do to get yourself out of that situation and how to deal with it. The first thing that we need to understand is why it sucks. For me, I find it really helpful to write things down because that way I can focus and I can really look at what I'm writing and identify patterns. If you don't feel like writing things down, that's fine, but I don't think you're going to get as much out of this exercise. So I would really recommend that you take the time to do this because feeling negative emotion for extended periods of time is not conducive to you living your best life. It's going to spill over and affect areas of your life, even areas that you are happy with or things that you enjoy, things that you like. And so you want to try to understand this and shift through this as fast as you can because you deserve to feel good. And I find that writing things down is the quickest way to achieve that. Otherwise, you can just follow along and make note, right? Ask yourself, reflect, and make note. The first question is, why does this suck? And I want you to list all of the reasons that this sucks, all of the particulars, all of the circumstantial evidence that you have that this situation in your life sucks. Why does it suck? You want to get this all out because it will help you identify what's really going on at a deeper level. So go ahead and list things out. You can do it bullet style. Why does this situation suck? The next step, which is step number 2, is to see if there are any patterns. Usually, situations that suck come down to some core emotions, whether that's fear, anger or frustration, control issues, which I would say are a cousin to anger and frustration, sadness, right? There's something at the root of the situation. And if you can look at your list of why this sucks, you might start to see a pattern. Maybe the situation sucks because it's a change and you weren't expecting this change and you didn't want this change. So that could tie into feelings of sadness, feelings of being let down, feelings of being abandoned, feelings of losing a sense of control. So look at through your list and see, are there any patterns that you can identify or any particulars, right? Maybe there's like a certain circumstance within the sucky situation that comes up often, or that really seems to be the main issue, right? The thorn in your side. Just look at your list and from a detached place, identify any patterns that you can. What's at the root of this? What's the deeper issue that we're sensing here? The third step is to ask yourself, can I change any of this? And the answer might be no, and that's okay. If the answer is no, it's not really no, because you can always change your perspective. And I know that that's annoying when you're dealing with a situation that sucks. I certainly have rolled my eyes at myself, or I've just simply not been able to find the mental capacity to shift my perspective, especially if I'm in the throes of it and I'm just like, this sucks. I need to just go do something mindless. I just don't even want to think about it anymore. But I guarantee you that you can change your perspective. And sometimes changing your perspective will give you just enough distance from the situation and will loosen you up just enough that you can start to detach and you can actually start to regulate your emotions a little bit better. And if you're able to regulate your emotions, then you're able to find solutions. No matter what, a perspective shift is going to be helpful. But I want you to look at the situation and ask yourself, is there anything that I can change? If there's a circumstance or an element of this that is within my control, what can I do about it? And also, you might want to even just list out the hypotheticals, right? Because a lot of us feel sometimes like we can't actually do anything, but there are always options available, even if they're not the ones that we would want to choose. So, for example, let's say that this is a job situation. It's just the easiest way to visualize this. If you're in a job and you hate it, can you quit? Yeah. You can. Is that the best option for you? Maybe not. Maybe you feel like, well, I can't quit because I need money to live. And that's an entirely valid position, but that is an option that is available to you. You could quit, right? So I want you to list out, what could I actually do about the situation? And if you're having trouble kind of coming up with that because it's something really big, maybe it's a health issue, or maybe it's something that is just feels so insurmountable and something that you have absolutely no control over. Let's go back to the perspective shift. How can you think about this differently? Even if it's just telling yourself, I got nothing. I can't find a perspective shift kind of thought right now, but I'm open to it. That's a tiny step in the right direction. I can't think of a perspective shift, but I know that I could potentially see this situation differently. I'm willing to see this situation differently. You can also talk to yourself about how this is temporary, because all situations, no matter how much they suck, are temporary. Everything in life is temporary. Everything is impermanence. I know that gives us the heebie-jeebies because it's an intense thought, but I guarantee you in your past, you have had experiences that sucked and you're no longer living those experiences. So reminding yourself that this is just a season in time. This is not forever. This is not going to last forever. I'm going to be able to make changes. The situation will get better in some way. That is also a very valid perspective shift. The next thing to do, and this is step 4, is to identify, okay, what is it that I want? Now, this step works best if you are starting to feel better. If you're going through this exercise and you still don't feel good, then don't move on to step 4. Step 4 is kind of contingent on you actually being in a place where you feel a little bit looser, you feel a little bit better. The clouds are starting to part, even if it's still raining. Maybe the sky is just getting a tiny bit lighter, okay? But if you are still in the throes of this sucks and I hate this and you're not really going to be able to do step 4 adequately, because step 4 involves you really being able to think about what you want and not in relationship to what you don't want. So this happens a lot when people are trying to change their situation. They feel like they're focusing on what they want, right? And we know that energy goes where we're directing it, right? We are the ones in control of our thoughts, and therefore what we're thinking is what we're getting reflected back to us. Because your thoughts create your emotion creates your reality, et cetera, et cetera. So when you are trying to think about what you want, sometimes it's difficult to separate what it is that you don't want. Let me give you an example. If you're sitting in a room and it's painted blue and you hate it, you might say something like, I'm sitting in this blue room. I hate it. I want this room to be red because I can't stand the blue because the blue doesn't look good with the decor and the blue makes everything look dingy and it doesn't really go with the floors and it doesn't look good with the curtains and I can't stand it anymore, so I want it to be red. In the balance of those statements, are we focusing more on what we want or what we don't want? We are focusing more on what we don't want. So be very mindful of that. Anytime you're doing an exercise where you're trying to refocus on what it is that you do want or how you want a situation to go, that you're not actually accidentally doubling down on what you don't want. Because we think that we're giving attention to what we want, but actually we're just giving attention to it in relationship to what we don't want. It's great if you can meditate through this. It's great if you can kind of imagine yourself, okay, blank slate, turn the page over. I mean, quite literally, if you're writing this down, turn the page over. Look at something from a completely blank perspective. Imagine yourself in a white bubble. What do I want? and speak from a place of purity, from a place of, okay, this is what I want and why I want it. And try your best not to default back to what it is that you don't want, because that's just going to create more of what you don't want. And that's fine if you do. This is a balance. You're not going to necessarily be able to tip the scale entirely into what you want, because obviously what you want is informed by the situation that you're living, which is what you don't want. But try your best to really focus more of your energy on what it is that you want, using what you don't want and what you are experiencing in this sucky situation as a jumping off point. See it as something that is propelling you forward rather than this thing that's like dragging you down. Okay? So those are your 4 steps. Number 1, figure out what about the situation sucks. Number 2 is to look at what you've written down and see if there's any patterns. Like, what's the root emotion here, if you can identify it? Or is there any theme that you're picking up? Number 3 is to ask yourself if you can change anything and write down what you could potentially change or what is within your power. And number 4 is to think about what you do want. This exercise alone should at least make you feel better from the standpoint that you've been able to identify what's actually going on from an emotional standpoint. Maybe you don't have the answers. Maybe you couldn't really come up with anything that you could potentially change. But at the very least, you've gotten things out onto paper. And that should help you ease your mind, ease your emotions, sort of calm down, and look at things from a different light. It may not feel like it's happening immediately, especially if you're in the throes of it and like this thing is very up close and you're dealing with it constantly, like a job, for example, or your relationship or a health issue. It's something that feels like it's constantly present and you can't get away from it. At least this gives you an alternative view of how you could potentially look at it. Let's dive into deep talk, because everything sucks has different connotations. We get ourselves into situations, or situations are thrust upon us that we're not expecting, we don't like, they're not fun. Maybe we signed up for something thinking it was going to be one way, and in fact it's another way, and now we're like, whoa, how did I get myself into this, etc. Every situation has the capacity to get better, has the capacity to change, has the capacity to completely poof, disappear from your life. It may not happen overnight, but that is a possibility, because as we said in small talk, there are situations and circumstances that you have lived through before that you are not currently living through right now. So you can prove to yourself that things can change and that they do change, and that we know the only constant in life is change itself. So whatever situation you're facing right now is not permanent, no matter how permanent it might feel. And I'm going to go zoom way out from the perspective train. Even if it's not permanent, because it's a situation that's going to kill you, and then you are not going to be there for permanent, so therefore the situation's not permanent. If you came with me on that one, congrats to you. I know that that's morbid, and I know that that's like, whoa, wait a second. But when I talk about perspective shifts, that's how far my mind can go. I invite you to always try to find a silver lining, even if it's morbid, and even if it's maybe not the lightest, fluffiest thing, because at the very least, sometimes thinking in these ways will make you laugh. And if you have the capacity to loosen yourself up enough to be able to laugh, then we're on a good track. Every situation has a silver lining. It might not be a great silver lining. The silver lining might also still suck, but it is a silver lining. And so it's your job to look at it from that perspective, and also to recognize that things are not permanent. You have the power to change. I think a lot of the times we get into this mind frame of, oh, the situation sucks, and I can't do anything about it. But ultimately you can. You can do something about it, even if it's, I'm going to just try to think about this differently. Or I'm going to try to make myself feel as good as I can while I'm dealing with this sucky situation, while I'm waiting for it to exit my life experience and something else come in its replacement. You can do things that will combat the sucky situation. You can find even 5 seconds of relief. You can find 5 seconds of relief. And if you can find 5 seconds of relief, the 5 can become 10, can become a minute, can become 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, a whole day. Things will snowball, but you have to be able to find relief. And it's helpful when things suck to treat yourself kindly. and to try to detach from it as much as you can so that it's not spilling over and then mentally taking up the 24 hours of your day or even following you into your dreams. You want to create a sense of distance where you can really shut off. This has been something that I've struggled with for a long time, especially when I worked in corporate and even now working from home, because everything kind of just bleeds into itself. But I've gotten very good at not allowing work situations to affect me when I'm off the clock. I say lovingly to my clients, when I'm off the clock, you're dead to me. Like, I love you as a human being and I want you to do well, but when we're not working together, like, you do not exist in my mind. Now, that's sometimes easier said than done. There are times when certain situations that are annoying or certain situations that I don't like will creep into my thoughts, and I find that most of my attention is focused on that. But then I take a step back and I go, wait, Emily, is this what you really want to be focusing on right now? You're supposed to be watching this movie, but you're replaying that meeting, or you're prepping for this other meeting in your mind. No, we don't want to be doing that. So it's just about having awareness and trying to make yourself feel better while you're experiencing this, knowing and trusting that it is temporary and that eventually you will be moving on to something else and things will change and they will get better and you will end up with an outcome that is better than whatever you're currently dealing with. The other thing to do, and this is very tempting, is to stop complaining. At some point, complaining about the situation is just not going to get you anywhere. It might feel good initially, and by all means, we need to express, we need to let things out, we need to not bottle up our emotions. That's also equally bad. But at some point, the complaining does not make you feel any better. It actually just makes you feel worse, and it just digs your heels in further to where you are. Remember from our exercise number 4, what do I really want? If you're still complaining about the issue, guess what? You're just perpetuating the issue. You're just perpetuating it because you're giving all of your attention and therefore all of your power to this situation that you don't want. Therefore, you're just getting more of what you don't want. At some point, you have to be able to look at it from an outside perspective, almost pretend that you're zooming out, like you're not even on Earth anymore. You're out there in outer space and you're looking at the situation from above, and detach from it to the level where it's not something that feels like it's up close and personal. And if you're complaining, that's not happening. The other thing with complaining is that it doesn't actually allow your brain the space that it needs to problem solve. Because problem solving is a creative act. And you might be missing opportunities or thoughts or circumstances that could actually lead you to a solution to either get yourself out of the situation, make the situation better. You can't do that because you're so focused on the problem because you're just in a state of complaining all of the time. It would be like if somebody was complaining that there's spilled milk on the floor and that they're just complaining, oh, every day is just milk on the, and I'm trying to hand you a towel, but you're so focused on the spill on the floor and complaining about it that you don't even see the towel at all in your peripheral vision. You can't even see it. And so we close ourselves off. That was a weird example, but we close ourselves off to answers or potential solutions because we're giving all of our energy to the problem. You've probably experienced this, for example, if, when you're trying to remember something and it's just on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it. If you continue the conversation or you focus elsewhere, then the answer comes to you, right? It's the same thing. If you can get your mind off of it long enough, you will create space to actually think about solutions or allow solutions to come to you. And we can't do that if we're in a state of complaining all the time. The other thing that I want to express is that this is a different kind of alternative view to the concept of everything sucks, because this episode is mainly centered around the thought that there's something going on in your life that you don't want. There's a situation that is annoying or a situation that's irritating or scary or makes you feel out of control and that it sucks and you don't want to be dealing with it. But I also want to talk about the fact that over time, even the situations that we once wanted will suck. Elements of them will suck. No situation is without its suckiness. And sometimes it's helpful to remember that and just know that even things that you once wanted are still going to annoy you. For example, the love of your life is still going to irritate you. You're still probably going to argue with this person. You're going to find things that annoy you. That dream job that you wanted is going to come with meetings that are annoying. There's going to be some aspect of it somewhere that is irritating to you. Even situations that on the outside look amazing and shiny and brand new, sometimes we get into them and we're like, oh, I didn't actually realize that this came with this set of circumstances, this set of problems. When I was in corporate, I just dreamt of the day that I would be my own boss. Little did I know that being my own boss means that I have to be super extra disciplined, and I'm not a super extra disciplined person. It's a process and I'm getting into it. I think that's the most challenging aspect about working for yourself that nobody really talks about, is that now you are your own manager. There's an episode of The Office where Kelly is talking to Jim and she's asking for a promotion, and she's saying something like, oh, there's so much going on in my department and I really think that I should be promoted. And he's like, Kelly, your department is just you. And she's like, yeah, and I'm a lot to manage, Jim. That's how I feel. I'm a lot to manage. I didn't know this going in. Being your own boss is great, but then also everything comes down to you. The things that we want will always have circumstances that we like and circumstances that we don't like, and aspects that we like and aspects that we don't like. And that's okay. That's part of life. You're kind of trading one set of problems for another in a way. And it doesn't mean that everything sucks. It just means that we have to do that exercise of adjusting, either adjusting our expectations, adjusting our perspective, trying to think about things differently. But I guarantee that if you can actually find a different perspective, you will begin to squeeze more juice out of life, because you'll be able to pretty much be invincible. If you have the capacity to think differently about the circumstances and things in your life, those things don't have control over you. And oftentimes when we're dealing with situations that suck, we just feel like we don't have any control and we can't do anything about it. And that's never true. You always have the capacity to change your mind or change the way that you're viewing something, and that will open a door. That will create the space for even more to start changing and for you to recognize other aspects that you could be looking at, things from a different perspective. When you find yourself in a situation that is sucky, walk through the exercise. Go through the 4 steps. Try to identify what about this sucks so much. Maybe there are actually added benefits that you hadn't thought about. Maybe you can take what sucks and you can actually look at it from another perspective and realize, hey, this must be serving me in some way. Because if you go back to the manifesting episode, we talked about how if you have a belief that things are working out for you, that this is a friendly universe, then any situation that you are in, no matter how unwanted or sucky or bad, there's got to be some aspect of it that is serving you. Even if it's just you getting clarity on what you actually do want, that can be super beneficial. Sometimes we know we want things to change, but they haven't quite gotten bad enough for us to actually do something about it. Sometimes we need that motivation and, oh, no, this is the last straw. I can't take anymore. No, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And you need that sense of conviction that only comes from you experiencing something acutely that sucks and you don't want to deal with it. And you're like, no, now I'm done. Now for sure I'm done. Maybe you were a little complacent before. Maybe you weren't feeling that passion. And now this situation, which quote unquote sucks, is actually the thing that is going to propel you out of it. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a silver lining to it. Even if you can't see it right now, you're not really meant to. It's only in retrospect that you can connect the dots to anything, but just trust that no matter what you're experiencing right now, it is serving you in some way. And maybe you can't see it right now, and that's okay. Maybe you don't want to see it. That's also okay. But know that it is a stepping stone, and know that it's temporary, and know that you can always find different thoughts. And if you can find different thoughts, you can get enough distance to where the situation itself can start to morph and can start to shift and shift away from you if you like. This has been your episode of Talk to Me Baby. As always, anything that we have discussed is listed down below. Please do the internet things, like, comment, subscribe, do all of the thingies. It helps me immensely. It helps the channel immensely. It helps this podcast immensely. Thank you so much for being here. You are appreciated. I'm your host, Emily de Armas, and I will talk to you later.